The night's biggest fireworks came at Dodger Stadium, where Seattle and Los Angeles combined for 7 home runs in a wild 7-6 Mariners win, while Detroit's offense buried Baltimore 14-0 behind a 2-homer, 4 RBI night from Eduardo Valencia. The Guardians topped the Reds 6-5 in the opener of a Cincinnati doubleheader, riding a home run from Kyle Manzuto that matched a Sal Stewart blast in a back-and-forth affair. Stewart provided the power and speed combo for Cincinnati, going deep and swiping a bag. But Cleveland's running game proved decisive as Jose Ramirez stole 2 bases and Steven Kwan added another, part of a relentless attack on the bases. Colin Holderman worked a scoreless inning to pick up the win in relief, and Cade Smith slammed the door with a 1-inning save to lock up the road victory. Ellie De La Cruz, Dane Myers, Nathaniel Lowe, Tyler Stephenson, and Edwin Arroyo all reached base with hits for Cincinnati, but it wasn't enough to overcome Cleveland's edge on the bases and in the bullpen. Ramirez's 2-steal day was one of the more eye-catching lines of the afternoon around the league, a reminder of the speed threat he brings every time he's on base. The Guardians took Game 1, setting up a rubber match atmosphere for the nightcap later that evening in Cincinnati. The Reds salvaged a doubleheader split, blanking the Guardians 2-0 in the nightcap despite a phenomenal outing from Cleveland's Gavin Williams, who struck out 12 over 7 innings only to end up with the loss. J.J. Bleday supplied the difference with a solo home run, and Jose Franco worked 3.2 scoreless innings in relief to pick up the win before Emilio Pagan closed it out with a clean save. Dane Myers chipped in a stolen base, while Ivan Johnson swiped 2 bags of his own, a 2-steal night that stood out as one of the day's better fantasy performances on the base paths. Cincinnati's offense was otherwise quiet. Bleday's homer was the headline knock, but it was enough to salvage a split after dropping the opener. Williams' 12-strikeout effort was among the most dominant pitching lines anywhere in baseball on the day, even in a losing cause. The Tigers put on an offensive clinic, thumping the Orioles 14-0 in a laugher at home. Eduardo Valencia was the headline act, going 4 for 5 with 2 home runs and 4 RBI, while Gleyber Torres added a homer of his own as part of Detroit's power surge. Kevin McGonigal chipped in a 4 for 5 night with an RBI, and Javier Baez went 3 for 4, giving the Tigers 3 separate multi-hit performances in the same lineup. On the mound, Troy Melton was every bit as dominant as the hitters, tossing 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts to pick up the win and never letting Baltimore's lineup get comfortable. Zach McKinstry, Ben Mallory, James Outman, and Colt Keith all found ways to reach base as well, and the only real question by the middle innings was how lopsided it would get. For fantasy managers, Valencia's night was about as good as it gets: a 2-homer, 4 RBI, multi-hit game that will jump off any box score, and Baez's 3 for 4 line added another streaming caliber performance from the same offense. Baltimore, by contrast, managed nothing across the board, with only Yoel Pozo and Jackson Holliday recording hits in a stunning shutout loss. Arizona held off Pittsburgh 8-7 in a slugfest at PNC Park that went right down to the wire. Brandon Lowe and Brian Reynolds both went deep for the Pirates, keeping the home team within striking distance all night, while Nolan Arenado 3 for 5, 1 RBI, and James McCann 4 for 6, 1 RBI paced the Diamondbacks' offense with multi-hit efforts of their own. Gerardo Carrillo worked 2 scoreless innings out of the bullpen to secure the win for Arizona. Corbin Carroll swiped a bag for the Diamondbacks, while Andy Rodriguez stole 1 for Pittsburgh in the back-and-forth affair. The night also belonged to Pirates infielder Nate Gonzalez, who collected a hit to push his streak to 12 straight games, one of the longest active hitting streaks in the league right now. Despite the milestone and the home runs, Pittsburgh couldn't quite complete the comeback, falling a run short in a game that featured 15 combined runs and needed a full bullpen effort from both sides to close out. Texas took down Tampa Bay 4-1 on the road, getting a home run from Austin Wynns and a strong start from Cal Quantrill, who worked 5.1 innings and struck out 7 while allowing just 1 earned run. Jacob Latz slammed the door with a 1-inning save to close it out. Evan Carter and Ezequiel Duran each stole a base to add some speed to the Rangers' night. Tampa Bay got a terrific individual effort of its own from Griffin Jax, who struck out 10 over 5.2 innings, but the Rays' bullpen and offense couldn't back him up, managing only a run's worth of support. Jonathan Aranda, Ben Williamson and Junior Caminero were the only Tampa Bay hitters to record a hit, and it simply wasn't enough against a Texas club that got timely production up and down the lineup. Sandy Alcantara and the Marlins outdueled the Phillies 1-0 in a tightly pitched affair, with Kyle Stowers providing the only run of the game on a solo home run. Alcantara was brilliant, going 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts, and Pete Fairbanks slammed the door with a clean save to finish it off. Xavier Edwards added a stolen base for Miami. Philadelphia got hits from Brian De La Cruz, Bryce Harper and Alec Boehm, but could never solve Alcantara or push a run across, falling in a classic pitcher's duel. It was a quiet offensive night all around, but Stowers' blast and Alcantara's complete command of the strike zone made it a memorable one for the Marlins. Washington outslugged Toronto 8-6 in a game that featured 4 home runs and a rain delay of over an hour. Dylan Cruz and Luis Garcia Jr. both went deep for the Nationals, while George Springer and Kazuma Okamoto answered with homers of their own for the Blue Jays, but Washington's lineup did just enough to hold on. Cade Cavalli worked 6 innings and allowed 2 earned runs to pick up the win, and Clayton Beeter closed it out with a save. Brady House, C.J. Abrams, Dylan Cruz, and Keibert Ruiz all contributed hits in the Nationals' winning effort. Toronto got production from George Springer, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Kazuma Okamoto, but it wasn't enough to overcome the deficit after the delay. With 4 total home runs in a game that stretched to 3 hours because of the weather, it was one of the more eventful contests of the night. Minnesota edged Kansas City 3-2 behind a dominant start from Taj Bradley, who struck out 10 over 6 innings to keep the Royals lineup off balance most of the night. Jack Anderson picked up the win with a scoreless inning out of the bullpen as the Twins held on late. Josh Rojas and Lane Thomas each stole a base for Kansas City, but the Royals could only push across 2 runs against Bradley and Minnesota's relief corps. Victor Caratini, Cody Clemens, Brooks Lee, Josh Bell, Ryan Jeffers, Ryan Cradler, Royce Lewis, and Luke Kershaw all had hits for the Twins in a balanced offensive effort, while Salvador Perez, Nick Lofton, and Lane Thomas did the same for Kansas City in the loss. Jarrett Cole was outstanding for the Yankees, tossing 6 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts as New York edged the White Sox 3-2. Chase Madraw answered with a solo home run for Chicago, but it wasn't enough to overcome Cole's night on the mound. David Bednar closed it out with a 1-inning save, and Jason Dominguez chipped in a stolen base for the Yankees. Munetaka Murakami, Drew Romo, Braden Montgomery, Andrew Benintendi, and Miguel Vargas all recorded hits for the White Sox, but Chicago couldn't find the extra run it needed against New York's bullpen. Cole's 7-strikeout, 0-run outing was one of the better pitching performances of the day across the league. The Cubs pounded the Cardinals 10-2, getting multi-hit nights from Alex Bregman 3 for 5, Pedro Ramirez 3 for 5, 1 RBI, and Seiya Suzuki 3 for 5, 2 RBI in a lopsided win. Colin Rea worked 6 innings and allowed just 1 earned run to pick up the win for Chicago. Pedro Ramirez and Nico Hoerner both stole bases as the Cubs pressured St. Louis on the bases all night. Michael Conforto, Ian Happ, Michael Busch, Carson Kelly, and Justin Dean also had hits in a Cubs lineup that had success from top to bottom. Louis got contributions from Brian Torres, Nathan Church, Lars Nootbaar, J.J. Weatherholt, Masson Wynn, and Nelson Velasquez, but the Cardinals' pitching couldn't keep up with a Chicago offense that piled on run after run. Houston held off the Angels 3-2 despite a strong start from Los Angeles' Reed Detmers, who struck out 9 over 5 innings. Christian Walker and Yordan Alvarez both homered for the Astros to provide the difference, and Steven Okert picked up the win with a scoreless inning before Josh Hader closed it out with a save. Zach Neto stole a base for the Angels, and Mike Trout, Jorge Soler, Vaughn Grissom, and Nolan Shaniel all recorded hits, but Los Angeles couldn't complete the comeback against Houston's bullpen. Nick Allen, Jose Altuve, Jeremy Pena, Christian Walker, Christian Vazquez, and Yordan Alvarez all had hits for Houston in a game where the power at the plate outweighed a quality start from Detmers. The Athletics edged Boston 4-3 behind a huge night from Tony White, who went 4 for 4, and a home run from Brian Serven. Gage Jump was excellent on the mound, working 6 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts to set up the win, and Hogan Harris closed it out with a 1.1-inning save. Henry Bolt and Jacob Wilson both stole bases for the Athletics. Boston got a home run of its own from Connor Wong and a stolen base from Caleb Durbin, but came up just short. The game also closed the book on two notable hitting streaks. Athletics infielder Tyler Soderstrom went hitless to end his 10-game streak, and Boston's Andrew Monasterio was held off the bases as well, seeing his own 9-game streak come to a close in the same game. Jahmai Jones, Will Abreu, Jarren Duran, Seth and Rafaela and Masataka Yoshida all had hits for Boston, but it wasn't enough to overcome the Athletics pitching and White's huge night at the plate. San Diego outlasted Colorado 8-7 in a wild back-and-forth game that saw Fernando Tatis Jr. go a perfect 5 for 5 with 2 RBI. Manny Machado 3 for 4, 1 RBI, and Jackson Merrill 3 for 5, 1 RBI, plus a stolen base. Also had big nights for the Padres, and Mason Miller worked a scoreless inning to pick up the win in relief. Colorado countered with home runs from Mickey Moniak and Willie Castro, and Cole Carrig went 3 for 4, but the Rockies came up just short despite the offensive fireworks. Luis Campusano, Gavin Sheets, Ty France, and Xander Bogaerts all chipped in hits for San Diego as well. The loss also ended Padres infielder Luis Rengiffo's 8-game hitting streak, as he was held hitless in a high-scoring affair. With 15 combined runs, 2 home runs, and a 5-hit night from Tatis, it was one of the most entertaining games on the schedule. Milwaukee routed San Francisco 8-2, getting a multi-hit night from Bryce Turang 3 for 5, 2 RBI, and stolen bases from Cooper Pratt and Luis Lara. Logan Henderson was excellent on the mound, working 5.2 innings with 7 strikeouts and no runs allowed to pick up the win. Bryce Eldridge provided the lone bright spot for the Giants with a solo home run, and Heliot Ramos, Young-Hoo Lee, Rafael Devers, Grant McCray, Willie Adams, and Luis Ariz all had hits, but San Francisco's pitching couldn't contain Milwaukee's lineup. The Brewers got hits from 8 different players, including Jackson Chourio, Christian Yelich, Andrew Vaughn, Garrett Mitchell, David Hamilton, and William Contreras. Chourio's hit also extended his own streak to 7 straight games with 1, keeping his hot stretch alive in a lopsided road win. In the wildest game of the night, the Mariners outslid the Dodgers 7-6 in a home run derby at Dodger Stadium, with 7 combined homers between the two teams. Dominic Kinson led the way for Seattle with 2 home runs, and Cal Raleigh, Rob Refsnyder, and Julio Rodriguez each added one of their own as the Mariners' power carried them to the road win. Los Angeles answered with blasts from Max Muncy and Shohei Ohtani, and Ohtani was sensational at the plate overall, going 3 for 4 with 3 RBI. Dalton Rushing also went 3 for 4 for the Dodgers. Jose Furr picked up the win for Seattle with a scoreless inning, and Andres Munoz closed it out with a save to seal the road victory. Muncy and Julio Rodriguez each stole a base as well, adding a speed element to an already power-packed night. Freddie Freeman kept his own hot streak alive with a hit, running it to 7 straight games, while Kyle Tucker, Tommy Edman, Andy Pages, and Mookie Betts all reached base for Los Angeles. For fantasy managers, Kansas' 2-homer night was one of the headline performances of the day anywhere in baseball, and this back-and-forth slugfest was easily the most dramatic finish of the night, with Seattle's bullpen making the final outs to hold off a Dodgers lineup that never stopped swinging. Atlanta and New York's game at CD Field did not produce a completed boxed score, with no runs, hits, home runs, or notable performances recorded for either side. Both clubs are shown at 0-0 in the data available, with no highlights, standout pitching lines, or attendance figures logged for the contest. Check back for an update once full game information becomes available for this Braves-Mets matchup. Pittsburgh's Nick Gonzalez kept his bat hot, extending his hitting streak to 12 straight games in Pittsburgh's loss to Arizona. Freddie Freeman's own streak reached 7 games in the Dodgers' wild loss to Seattle. On the other side, 2 notable streaks came to an end. Athletics infielder Tyler Soderstrom saw his 10-game hit streak snapped, and Boston's Andrew Monasterio had his 9-game streak stopped in the same game between the Athletics and Red Sox. Detroit's Eduardo Valencia put together the fantasy line of the night, going 4 for 5 with 2 home runs and 4 RBI in a Tigers blowout. Seattle's Dominic Hansa matched him with a 2-homer game of his own in a wild road win over the Dodgers. On the bases, Jose Ramirez swiped 2 bags for Cleveland, and Cincinnati's Ivan Johnson matched him with 2 steals of his own, giving speed-needy fantasy rosters plenty to like. Javier Baez also chipped in a 3-for-4 night for the Tigers, another streaming-worthy performance from an offense that couldn't be stopped. That's a wrap on today's action around the majors. Hit subscribe so you never miss a recap, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for more.